Lights will guide you home, and I promise I will burn for you. By rayrae118. Chapter 11. Severus Snape was surprised. Christmas was normally not a holiday he celebrated, choosing instead to spend the day working on various projects, or catching up on reading he wasn't able to get to with all those snot-nosed brats running around during the term. At least, that's how it used to be. He found that he didn't mind teaching so much anymore, but he still liked to use the quiet time of the holidays to catch up on personal pursuits. However, Christmas was not a day that he considered special by any means. He hadn't gotten a present in years. Not since Lily. Which was why he had been so surprised to wake up on the morning of the 25th to find an innocently wrapped present waiting for him at the foot of his bed. He had, of course, performed all the necessary spells to guarantee that there were no hexes or jinxes on the parcel before opening it. Inside was a beautiful set of self-stirring rods for potions, as well as an assortment of ingredients that Severus knew were incredibly rare and therefore exceedingly expensive. The note proved the gift to be from Harry, who explained that the ingredients were a collection from his personal greenhouse. So, yes, Severus was surprised. He had gotten the boy a gift, of course, but he hadn't expected one in return. He examined the present once more, and felt something like a smile creep across his face, already considering the potions he could now brew with these ingredients. He may be the defense professor now, but potions were his true calling. He'd have to find some way to thank Harry for the thoughtful gift. With that thought in mind, and the potions journal he had been planning to finish today cast from his mind, Severus quickly made his way to his personal potions lab. Line break. As the holidays continued to pass, Harry and Ginny were looking for an opportunity to sneak away to Grimmauld Place. There weren't many, as the entire group came over frequently. Blaise and Daphne visited the day after the holiday, thanking Harry for his presence and letting out some stress by destroying a few dueling dummies. Astoria came over to watch some more movies, completely captivated by the technology. Harry thought it was a shame that she hadn't taken the Muggle Studies class. 2 days after Christmas, a chance finally proved itself. Hermione had stayed home to spend the day with her parents. Susan and Amelia had gone dress shopping for the wedding. Neville was working on his greenhouse, and Ron had agreed, only partially, to help Fred and George at their shop. A little questioning revealed that Minerva would be at Hogwarts all day, and Sirius would be busy at the ministry, while Remus was working at a Muggle bookstore. Ginny flowed over promptly at 10 o'clock to give all the adults a chance to leave for their respective duties. Harry met her at the fireplace, and the two immediately left for the Black ancestral home. Harry led Ginny up to the library, keeping an ear and eye open for any company. The house should be empty, but it was used as a way station of sorts for Dumbledore's order, so there was a possibility of someone showing up. "Make sure you're careful around these books," he cautioned as they entered the massive room. "Sirius said some of them have curses on them, and some are just plain evil." Ginny nodded, and they began to wander through the separate shelves together, not wanting to separate in such a heavy and oppressive space. It was like they could feel the evilness of the books whispering at them, trying to lure them closer. After almost an hour of searching, they settled at a table with a half-dozen books that looked promising. Though they didn't know how to dispel the curses, Harry could sense which ones were trapped. He wasn't sure how, but some of them sent a shiver down his spine, and he just knew to avoid those. The ones that they had found dealt with methods of prolonging life, a few dark rituals, and the one Harry immediately started with spoke a lot about soul magic. The day disappeared quickly as they pored over the books. Harry was captivated and disgusted by what he read, but he knew what he learned certainly fit with what he knew of Voldemort. He looked up and caught Ginny's eye. He opened his mouth to speak, but was cut off by a loud crack that echoed around the room. He looked down at the space next to him, startled to see an old house elf watching him distrustfully. He frowned. He vaguely remembered Creature from his stay here after Sirius had taken him away from his aunt and uncles. The elf had always been muttering to himself, not making much sense beyond the insults to muggleborns and blood traitors. Still, he always tried to be polite to house elves, knowing that they had a lot of work to deal with, and not wanting to add to their burden. "Hello, Creature," he said calmly, trying to sound neutral. Creature peered up at him distrustfully. dirty godson of blood traitor master speaks. Creature wonders what he is doing here. Yes, creature wonders what he is doing, touching precious black family books. Harry and Ginny looked at each other before Harry set down the book he had been reading and turned his complete attention to the house elf. Creature, Ginny and I were researching for a private project. We really don't want anyone to know what we are looking for. Creature's eyes narrowed. Filthy Potter boy speaks to Creature. He doesn't want Creature to say anything. Creature wonders why he should listen to filthy blood traitor. Harry grit his teeth, ignoring the insults. He just wanted the house elf to understand. Creature, we're trying to find a way to end the war. Creature froze, his eyes widening as they looked at Harry. Filthy Potterboy speaks the Dark Lord's name. Filthy Potterboy acts as if he knows how to complete such an act. But no one can know. Master Regulus failed. A creature failed Master Regulus. He was nearly in tears by the end of his rant, wailing loudly and sobbing harshly. Harry frowned. What do you mean, Creature? He asked softly. What happened to Regulus? He remembers Sirius telling him about his brother. Regulus had proudly joined the Death Eaters at 16, and then, according to Sirius, had gotten cold feet about something he was supposed to do, and had been killed for it. They only really knew that much because his death date had appeared on the family tapestry that was hanging up in this house. He had just disappeared shortly before the war ended. No body, nothing. Did Creature know something no one else did? Creature was still sobbing, but it was slowing down slightly, so Harry slipped off his seat and knelt in front of the elf. Creature, take your time and calm down. When you feel ready, please, can you tell me what happened? The politeness Harry extended only set Creature off again, and it was almost 10 minutes before he calmed down enough to talk. Slowly, and with several breaks, he told Harry and Ginny about how Regulus had volunteered him to the Dark Lord. He had gone to a cave past animated bodies, which Harry knew to be inferi, floating in a lake, to a small island, where the Dark Lord made him drink a potion before placing a locket in a stone bowl and refilling it with the potion, before leaving. He explained needing to drink, and disturbing the water, causing the bodies to come alive. There was real fear in Creature's eyes that made Harry sympathetic and a little uncomfortable. Harry frowned. How did you get out, Creature? If Voldemort left you there, how did you escape? Creature looked at him confused. Master Regulus told Creature to return once the Dark Lord was finished with him. Harry nodded slowly. It would make sense, he figured. After all, house elf magic was different from that of witches and wizards. It would be just like Voldemort to add anti-apparition wards and completely overlook house elves. If they could apparate and disapparate in Hogwarts, Harry was sure that Creature could get around whatever wards were in place in this cave and return home. He nodded. What happened next? He asked, sensing that this part of the story would get even tougher for the poor elf. Indeed, Creature teared up, and then promptly spilled over as Ginny handed him a handkerchief. After 5 more minutes, he had finally calmed down enough to continue. Master Regulus asked Creature what happened. He was concerned and disappeared for weeks. He came back in the middle of the night and asked Creature to take him to the cave. Creature's eyes filled up again. We went past the bodies and to the island. Master Regulus, So Creature sobbed, and Harry reached out, resting a hand comfortingly on the elf's shoulder. Creature looked startled by the gesture of comfort, and Harry nodded for him to continue. Taking a deep breath, the house elf did. Master Regulus told Creature to return home, no matter what, and not tell anyone what had happened, not even his poor mother. Mistress was so distraught. Her brave and noble son vanished, dead. Harry bit his lip. He drank the potion and took the locket, didn't he? It wasn't a question, but Creature nodded miserably. He drank and saw horrible things. The potion made Creature and Master relive nightmares. He shivered. When the basin was empty, Master Regulus took out the locket and gave it to Creature. He put in a fake and told Creature to leave and destroy the locket. Before Creature did so, he saw Master dragged beneath the water by the dead bodies. Harry couldn't suppress his shiver at the image of anybody dying in that way. It must have been horrible. I'm so sorry for what you've been through, Creature. Creature hiccuped and peered up at Harry. Godson of nasty, Master. Feel sorry for Creature? Harry nodded, smiling reassuringly. What you went through was horrible, Creature. He hesitated. Would you like to take a seat? Ginny and I would like to talk to you. And we should all be comfortable, right? Creature looked like he wanted to start crying again, but managed to contain himself, and, hesitantly, took a seat at the table where Ginny and Harry had been working. Ginny leaned forward, slightly, her warm brown eyes compassionate. Creature, did you know what Regulus was doing when he took that locket? Creature looked at her with wide eyes. Master said he knew how to end the war. Ginny nodded and then took a deep breath. That locket was one of several objects that we believe are tying Voldemort to life. Creature shivered a little at the name, but didn't speak. Harry and I are working towards removing those tethers, so that we can kill him, once and for all. Basically, we're trying to continue the work Regulus was doing when he died, Harry summarised, hoping that the elf would be willing to help them. Sirius had many horror stories about how awful this elf was growing up, but Harry knew that house elves mostly emulated their master's beliefs. Creature would have been awful, but only because Sirius's parents had acted that way. He would have just followed his master and mistress's attitude to please her. Creature's eyes got even wider. Potter boy will help Creature? Creature won't fail anymore? Harry nodded. We'll help you destroy the locket, Creature. I promise. Creature's mouth twitched, and Harry realised that the elf was trying to smile, but the notion must have been so foreign to him that he wasn't sure how. He was about to speak when Creature popped away. Harry and Ginny barely had time to look at each other before the elf was back. In his hands was a gaudy locket. He held it out to Harry gingerly. Creature tried throwing it in the fire. He tried freezing it and breaking it, but nothing worked. Creature is sure that the way to destroy it is by opening it, but it won't open. Harry looked at the locket and examined it. It was overly large and gold, with an S on the front, made up of emeralds. He raised an eyebrow and looked at Ginny. I think this belonged to Slytherin, he commented. Ginny leaned forward interestedly and studied the locket. I think you're right, she agreed. Though I can't imagine Slytherin walking around wearing that thing. It's kind of hideous. Harry snorted and nodded. A moment later he frowned when he felt something like a pull in his scar. It was slightly reminiscent of the pain he used to feel whenever Voldemort was near, and he was concerned. Ginny furrowed her brow. Can you feel that? She asked, a hidden fear in her mental voice. Harry nodded imperceptibly. It's a part of Voldemort. I can almost feel a pain in my scar, like it's responding to the locket. He looked at Creature. Is it all right if we take this with us? We'll keep it safe, and when we figure out how to destroy it, we'll let you know. Creature's wide eyes studied Harry for a moment before he nodded. Master Harry will keep his promise. Creature believes Master Harry will finish the Dark Lord. Harry was slightly shocked to receive such a vote of confidence from the elf, but he nodded, though he was confused as to why Creature was suddenly calling him Master. We should get back before we're missed, Ginny commented. Harry agreed and they stood up. Thank you, Creature, for hearing us out and telling us your story. You were very brave that day, and I have a feeling that hasn't changed. Creature sniffed. Master Harry is very kind. Harry furrowed his brow. Why are you calling me Master now? Creature peered up at him. Master Harry is Master Sirius's ward. He is Creature's master as well. Harry raised an eyebrow, but didn't comment. He was slightly amazed at how, in just one day, that could change the entire elf's beliefs. All of a sudden, Creature wasn't the muggle-born hating, pure blood promoting house elf anymore. It was a startling change. He smiled.
We'll see you soon, Creature. If you ever need us, don't hesitate to ask. We'll be there.
Creature nodded. Master and Mistress Potter are the best masters ever. Harry and Ginny stared. You can see our bond? Ginny asked curiously. Harry remembered what Fleur had told him a couple of years earlier, that magical creatures could sense soul bonds. House elves would surely know that they were married. Creature nodded knowingly. Oh yes, it is very strong for a bond that has not been completed. Creature knows that Master and Mistress are a very powerful witch and wizard. The two teens weren't quite sure of what to say, so they just said goodbye and headed to the flue to return to McGonagall Castle, with both the locket and the book on soul magic that Harry had found very informative in their possession. Harry hoped no one would notice that they had taken the book, but he doubted that they would. The library wasn't used for anything. In fact, the only part of this house that was used was the kitchen, mostly, and that was just for order meetings. Once they returned, they immediately headed up to Harry's room. Harry pulled out a small wooden box that he kept various knickknacks in and emptied it out. He then placed several powerful wards on the box, before putting the locket and the book inside and placing it in the fourth compartment of his trunk.
Hopefully the wards on the box will keep everyone but us out, he said mentally as he closed the lid of his trunk. I think I made them powerful enough.
Ginny nodded. I'm sure you did, Harry. I could feel the power in them. It should be enough to discourage anyone from even trying, even if they figure out what it is we've got. With the immensity of their situation settling down around them, they both sat down on the bed.
I can't believe it,
he commented. I know, Ginny replied. I mean, it just seemed so different, now that we know the reality.
In theory it was different, Harry agreed. Now we know these Horcruxes are real. And now we're not just grasping at straws. It seems so much more immense.
We've got a lot of work to do. Ginny sighed wearily. Line break. Late afternoon on New Year's Eve found a small group gathered outside the back garden at McGonagall Castle. The house elves had decorated the garden with lights and set out several rows of white chairs facing a makeshift altar. This too had been decorated with lights and draped with a sheer gold tulle fabric. There were white and purple roses on the altar, and at the ends of each row of chairs. The aisle had been lined with gold tulle and was set up with purple rose petals scattered down its length. Several warming charms made sure that no one would be cold in the crisp December air. Harry thought the house elves really knew what they were doing, as he observed the scene from his spot next to Sirius and Remus. The setting was beautiful. It had snowed earlier in the week, and there was still a good 3 inches on the ground around them, but the location the elves had picked for the ceremony was dry. And the colours worked very well together. It definitely gave off a winter wedding vibe. The chairs were all occupied, as the guests arrived promptly. The Weasleys came over, with only Charlie still in Romania, and Percy, still not talking to his family, not in attendance. Fleur was with them. Augusta and Neville arrived early, as the Longbottom Dowager was performing the ceremony. Kingsley and the Tonkses arrived at nearly the same time, and the two Aurors were currently talking about different disarming techniques, while the Tonks' parents listened with interest. Hermione showed up just a few minutes before the ceremony was to start, and slipped into the open seat next to Ron, who promptly gave her a kiss on the cheek and complimented her dress, causing Hermione to blush, almost matching the rose-coloured dress that she wore as she smiled in thanks. Invisible music began to play, and the guests all turned to the back of the aisle to see Susan walk down wearing a gold dress with spaghetti straps that cut off at the knees. In her hands was a bouquet of purple roses. Behind her was Amelia. Harry spared a glance for Sirius and smiled at the loving look in his godfather's eyes. It was as if he was a blind man seeing the sun for the first time. Knowing his godfather was truly happy with his life and completely in love. Harry turned back to his soon-to-be Mother? Not really, since his godmother was Alice, but what do you call the woman who marries your godfather? He shook his head to clear it of errant thoughts, and just watched, a content smile on his face. Amelia's wedding dress was beautiful. An off-the-shoulder, long-sleeve, simple A-line dress. No lace, no frills, just plain and serviceable. Very similar to Amelia's personality. It definitely fit the hard-as-nails Minister of Magic. Her bouquet was made up of purple and white roses, and several leaves that had been charmed gold. The smile on her face was blinding. Her eyes caught Sirius's and didn't waver as she made her way down the aisle. Once the two of them were standing in front of Augusta, Amelia handed her bouquet to Susan to hold, and the long-bottomed dowager began.
Welcome, friends and family. We're here today to join Sirius Orion Black and Amelia Susan Bones in holy matrimony. I hope you will bear with me, as performing weddings is not something I have ever done before. I will do my best not to miss anything. Everyone chuckled, and Augusta smiled. Sirius and Amelia told me they wrote their own vows, so I'll let them get to it. Sirius? Sirius smiled widely, focused on Amelia. When I was 17, I joined the Aurors straight out of Hogwarts. I was an idiot who thought he could take on the world. I thought I was the smartest, the toughest, the strongest. And then I went to my first day of classes, and there was this fiery instructor there, who wasted no time in dumping me on my arse and telling me that pretty much didn't mean squat to a Death Eater. Amelia snorted, and everyone else laughed. Sirius shrugged. She then kicked my ass a few more times, and I knew she was a keeper. Amelia's smile widened. Amelia, we've both had our share of hardships. We've both had ups and downs. We lost so much, and it's hard not to think about the could have beens. But that doesn't matter anymore, because it's no use thinking about what we've missed. All that matters is what we can achieve together. We've got our whole lives ahead of us. Forever. He took a deep breath, grasping her hands tightly. And so, Amelia Susan Bones, I vow to love you fiercely, no matter what challenges or obstacles we face. I vow to face those challenges with you, and never let you go through it alone. I vow to be your best friend, your confidant, your love, your life, forever and always. Amelia was tearing up as he finished, as were a few of the guests as well. Augusta nodded, and turned slightly. Amelia? The minister took a deep breath and started talking. When we met, I thought you were just a nuisance. Just one more obstacle on my way to the top. But then you just had to go and prove me wrong. You were so damn stubborn and persistent, and I found myself falling just a little bit further every day without realizing. She sniffed, composing herself, and Sirius smiled, the corner of his eyes crinkling in amusement. Standing here, looking at you, I'm reminded of all the reasons I fell in love with you. With you, I'm complete. We're complete. I remember the laughs, the beautiful moments, and the hardships that only made us stronger. I give you this promise today. I will love you completely. I will stand by you through good times and bad. I will cherish every moment, and I will knock you down a peg whenever you need it. Everybody chuckled. Augusta nodded to Harry, who pulled out a ring and handed it to Sirius. Augusta cleared her throat. Sirius, place the ring on Amelia's finger and repeat after me. With this ring I wed thee. Sirius took Amelia's hand in his and slid the diamond-encrusted ring onto her finger. With this ring I wed thee. Augusta looked at Susan, who handed Amelia Sirius's ring. Place the ring on Sirius's finger and repeat after me. With this ring I wed thee. Amelia slipped the ring onto her soon-to-be husband's finger. With this ring I wed thee. Sirius looked down at the wide platinum band that now adorned his finger. Augusta looked at the crowd. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Lord and Lady Black. Sirius, you may kiss your bride.
Needing no more encouragement, Sirius leaned forward and captured Amelia's lips with his own, oblivious to the clapping and cheering all around them. When they broke apart, Amelia smiled prettily up at him. You're stuck with me now, Black. Sirius leaned forward again and gave her a peck on the lips.
Good, he replied, pulling back.
They went down to accept their friends' congratulations, while the house elf set up several tables and got the food ready for dinner. They had a very enjoyable evening, eating the food the house elves had prepared. There was a small dance floor set up, and the various couples spent most of the night there, dancing and enjoying the beautiful evening. It was a clear night, and millions of stars could be seen twinkling above. When midnight rolled around, Fred and George once more set off fireworks. These were predominantly purple and gold colours. Everyone cheered as the images took shape in the inky black sky. Roaring dragons, sparkling unicorns, and at the very end, the letters S and A inside two hearts linked together. The couples all shared kisses before heading inside for the night. Susan stayed at McGonagall Castle, while Sirius and Amelia returned to the Bones estate. She would stay with Harry and Minerva until she returned to Hogwarts, giving the newlyweds some time to themselves. It wasn't feasible for them to go on a honeymoon. Not right now, at least. Not with the war. But at least Susan could give them some space. Before the adults left, Susan and Harry hugged them and congratulated them once more. Amelia smiled brightly as Harry pulled back. If I haven't said it yet, Harry, I am thrilled to be able to call you family. If you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. Harry blushed and nodded.
I'm glad Sirius has you,
he said quietly, looking over at his godfather, who was currently speaking softly to Susan, smiles on both of their faces.
He needs someone to ground him. You both deserve to be happy.
Amelia teared up and gave him another hug, before she and Susan stepped through the flue. Line break. Harry and Susan were getting ready to leave for the Hogwarts Express 2 days later, when their morning was interrupted by a haggard Sirius stepping through the fireplace. Harry frowned, reaching forward, surprised to see his godfather looking so exhausted.
Sirius, what's going on? What are you doing here?
Sirius grimaced.
I know you two need to leave soon, but the situation has changed a bit. Last night, Azkaban was attacked.
The two teenagers stared. I thought you were moving the prisoners, Susan asked hesitantly.
Sirius nodded. We were going to, last night. We've got a mole. We've swept the department early this morning, and found several listening spells set up. Whoever did this had to at least be partially aware of the procedures at the DMLE, because every room was swept regularly for listening spells to prevent just this from happening. The Death Eaters knew when we were moving the prisoners, and when the walls would be down. There was a period of a couple of hours, and they struck exactly at the right time. 7 auras are dead, and 9 more were injured, with 3 more of them critical.
Harry bit his lip.
How many escaped?
Sirius shook his head.
All of the Death Eaters that were captured by the Ministry, as well as roughly 20 more who had not been sprung last year.
He paused.
And Umbridge.
Harry groaned. Of course that hag would jump at the chance to join ranks with Voldemort.
Sirius sighed. It's a tough situation, and I wanted to let you guys know first before you read about it in the Prophet tomorrow. I guess we can be happy that at least this happened too late for it to be printed right away. I also wanted to let you know that your trip to the platform is no longer just Remus and Tonks seeing you off. A contingent of Auras will meet you at the Floo station at King's Cross. He held up a hand at the looks of annoyance both teenagers were giving him. I know you don't want the guard, but you have to look at it from our perspective. Susan, you're the minister's niece. And Harry? Well, you're Harry.
Harry rolled his eyes and Sirius chuckled.
Not to mention the godson of the minister's new husband.
He tossed them that morning's copy of The Prophet, where the minister's secret wedding covered the front page. Since no one had been aware of the wedding beforehand, the only picture showed was the official one they had taken immediately following the ceremony, with Sirius and Amelia smiling happily at each other. They had given it to the paper to use, knowing that they weren't going to hide their new status. Harry tucked the paper into his bag to read later, and looked back at his godfather. Sirius shrugged apologetically.
I know you don't want a bunch of people you don't know watching your every move, but you need protection. And don't tell me you can take care of yourself, Harry. This is how it's happening. Every person on this detail has been personally vetted. They are all part of Amelia's personal guard.
Harry nodded resignedly, and Sirius smiled slightly.
I need to go back and help with the search and a whole bunch of other issues. You should head to the station. The guard should be there by now.
They nodded and gave the older man a hug before he stepped through the flue. They looked at each other, both gazes successfully conveying their aggravation towards having minders escort them to the platform, before they gathered their belongings and went through the fireplace. As Harry had sent Hedwig on ahead, all he had to carry was his trunk, shrunken and inside his pocket, and his rucksack, which contained a clean uniform and a few books for the journey. Susan likewise only had a shrunken trunk and a shoulder bag, with things to catch her interest on the train. At King's Cross they were met with 5 stony-faced Auras and Tonks, who smiled and waved at them, her hair its typical bubblegum pink. "Watcha, Harry!" Susan, the perky Aura greeted. They greeted Tonks in return before one of the other Auras coughed, and Tonks rolled her eyes. She gestured to the exit. "Let's get you two to the platform, shall we?" They all headed through the crowded station to the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. In groups of 2 they crossed through to platform 9 3/4, where the Auras cut a clear path through the masses. People stared as they walked by, which was only natural considering the armed guard that was escorting the 2 teenagers. They stopped at a car halfway down the train, and Tonks gave them both a hug. "You should get on the train. I'll send the others your way when they arrive." Harry nodded his thanks before glancing questioningly at the others. Tonks shrugged. "They'll still until the train leaves. Protocol and all that." Harry and Susan rolled their eyes and got on board. Over the next 15 minutes, the rest of their friends arrived before the train took off at 11 o'clock precisely. Once they were on their way, Harry and Susan told the others about the prison break. Hermione gasped in shock. "But how? I thought they were moving the prisoners to prevent this from happening." Harry nodded grimly.
They were, the night the breakout happened. Unfortunately, Sirius believes there's a spy in the department who informed them of what was going on, as well as the window the wards would be down. So they were able to plan their attack around our weaknesses. Wouldn't just the information they were able to get give us some sort of clue as to who it was? Ron asked. Only a handful of people knew this move was happening.
Harry sighed.
They found listening spells set up. They were probably taken down and reapplied regularly to avoid detection by the department. Unfortunately, this widens the pool of suspects slightly, though whoever did it did have to be aware of the department policies and procedures.
"And we really can't do much since we don't know who those suspects are," Ginny grimaced. Harry nodded.
"Exactly. It'll be up to Sirius, Kingsley, Amelia and the DMLE head, Scrimgeour, to figure this one out. We've got enough problems of our own."
The 2 of them shared a significant look, thinking about the locket and the Horcruxes, but didn't elaborate to the others, who all considered school duties, plus the insane homicidal maniac bent on killing Harry, to be enough of a worry. They all settled down with reading materials for the rest of the trip. Harry shared with them the article about Sirius and Amelia's wedding, and they all commiserated over Harry and Susan's increased guard for the short walk from the flue access to the platform. It was dark as the train pulled into the Hogsmeade station, and Harry and his friends, now all changed into their uniforms, headed to the thestral-drawn carriages and made their way up to the castle. Seeing the lights shining in welcome of the returning of the students, Harry smiled. As much as he loved McGonagall Castle, he was glad to be returning to the first place he could ever remember calling home. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that. Mixed bag, that chapter, huh? Oh, creature, give the poor elf a hug. Lovely wedding, but of course it ends on a cliffhanger. I mean, yes, they're at Hogwarts and it's nice, but seriously, another Azkaban breakout? Ugh. Well, what can you do? It's Harry Potter. You guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe, hit the bell to get notified, blah, blah, blah. Have a good day, night, wherever time zone you're in. Take care, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Bye!